Thank you for joining the Sharpest College Football Podcast. I am BuckMetrics, joined as always by Robert Martin. And joining us again is our guy, Duck. This is our conference title games preview episode. Gentlemen, we have 9 games. We're going to talk about them all in some level of depth. Really quick, just is there one, I'll start with you, Duck, since we haven't seen you for a while. Thank you for joining us. Any one in particular that's got your attention the most?
Yeah, Virginia and Duke.
Okay, yeah, very fair.
I have a 200-1 future on Virginia, and it is, I'm not hedging. They're winning the conference. They're a team of destiny, and I'm not hedging on that. And it's unspeakable how they've gone through their conference slate and navigated some of the tougher waters, and breaks have gone their way. I'm not hedging it out.
Duck is a good... Go ahead, Robert, please.
Yeah, he's betting 200-1 on the continued existence of the 12-team playoff. That's quality.
Duck is as much a gentleman and nice guy as you'll ever know. I'll see if I can make him testy, because if I had that much and I was going to hedge it, I might be able to get, Mad Duck going here for a little bit. That would be fun. All right, Robert, anyone that you're most interested in seeing?
That one is going to be a fun game. It's for some reason at 8 o'clock. For some reason, I'm not sure why, but okay. But some of we all have ridiculous North Texas futures. We all have James Madison futures. So I think Friday night is going to be a very fun night as well for some of those as well. But yeah, I think though I'm really excited to watch the Big Ten championship game. But yeah, I'm not so much. The outcome doesn't really matter. But I'm excited to watch that game.
Yeah, and to be clear, I didn't. JMU is a little short for me. For me, as they say in college football, it's all about the U. Conference USA. Let's go Owls. All right.
I have Kansas State future too. Yeah.
Wow. Love it. All right. This is our glossary. If you are new, take a screen grab of this and save it where you keep all your college football stuff. And if you are not new, if you're returning, especially if you are regular, we thank you very much. And you are, by definition, brilliant. All right, Robert, just catching up on last week. Things have caught up here, and I will point out, you might remember about week 7 or so, I said it's going to be a rough year because Clay Travis is having a great year. I will point out that our guy was he regressed to 500 before this week, and he went 5-12 last week. So, honest to God, when people just say, fade Clay Travis, and it's not the same games, but I just think the way things fall, they either fall to sharp or square.
Yeah.
Duck, you know this better than both of us. Have you seen that too? Does this just seem like basically globally a season kind of falls to sharper squares? Do you see, I guess let me ask you this. Since you're plugged into the Action Network and you know a lot more people that know this than Robert or I, no disrespect to either of us, I'm just thinking that you probably don't know, I know 5 sharps and 3 did well this year and 2 just actually absolutely ate it. It just seems to me like basically sharps as a whole or as a consensus really either have a really good year or a bad year. Is that fair?
I think so. I think it all depends on how you can recalibrate your power ratings and recalibrate what's happening week to week, because there's so much volatility, and we've seen a lot of that this year. And I've noticed more now than ever that week to week we have not seen as many underdogs win outright. It's been really tough to find a lot of those massive upsets, and so week to week you find a lot of the public sides are covering. And so if you don't adapt to that, it can make it a little bit harder to win week to week. But I also think that it just ebbs and flows. This is such a small blip on the radar when you compare season after season of your portfolio that, it could just be a bit of an anomaly.
I've said this like a few times here. I used to, back when I was my unfortunate days as a W-2 employee, one of my responsibilities was being the manager for a self-funded employee benefits fund or medical fund. And the brokers told me in 5 years you're going to have one really nice year, you're going to have one really horrible claims year, you're going to have 3 average years. And I think that applies here. I'm going to see if I can get my numbers here, but it seems like my model goes back to 2016. And there's been 2 really rough years, and this is one of them. And I'm just going to bring that up. Maybe I'll do that. I don't know. Not for the playoff. For next season. But anyways, this week, 4-2, no sides totals. Thank God, which have been brutal to us this year. The totals were 4-2 this week, and they've just gotten us to where we are this year. Let's fix the sides, Robert. All right, going over my top 20 in the most accurate poll. Were you able to vote on that when you're on your scouting mission for your real estate?
There was.
Okay.
I was obviously in a different time zone. That was fun, but yes, I was able to do that. I actually just quick note on this because every once in a while when I've been voting before in the pipeline, I've made some small adjustments to what my model spits out for the rankings. This week I just said nope, screw it. I'm just doing what my model says and I think the number 5 there is the reason why that's such a big. But I'm just like, I don't care. Like, my model's been bearish on Texas A&M. I think my model's right. I think my model's right on them. I don't think they're a top 25 team.
Yeah, and they're to me the toughest team to rank. Let me just grab my laser pointer here. A couple notes before we get to them. Just 1-2 is obvious to me. It's got to be those two, Indiana and Ohio State. I will say 3-4, you and I agree on which teams they are, even though we have them in different order. And our models are more bullish on these two, Notre Dame and Oregon, than basically the rest. Notre Dame, I think, tends to be in the bottom half of the Part 10, and Oregon a few spots lower. But if I'm looking, I'll put it this way, if I'm handicapping the playoffs without brackets, I think pretty clearly these are my top 4 that I'm going to look at in terms of playing. But you think so, Robert? I see you nodding a little bit.
I just think we just pretend Notre Dame's a Big Ten team. They are, basically. Like, they're not an SEC team. They're very clearly supposed to be a Big Ten team. So let's pretend they're a Big Ten team, and the top teams are 4 Big Ten teams. There you go, done. Very easy.
Yep. Duck, would you have these as your top 4? In terms of just bettability? Not bettability. Favoritism to win without regard to price.
It's tough to say because Oregon is likely to have to play in the first round, and so their path is just inherently harder. So I don't know that I would bet on Oregon to win, and I think they're priced significantly worse than the other 3. I think Texas Tech is pretty good. Miami is not going to make it. Georgia is probably a lock. I think Alabama has to win this week in order to secure their spot. But there's some crazy talk out there about Notre Dame being left out. And that has some pretty legitimate legs. If you look at the betting price right now for Notre Dame to make the playoff, yes is only minus 350.
Wow.
So some legitimate steam to Notre Dame being left out.
That's a pretty high number still. 350 is...
Oklahoma's minus 5,000 to make it.
Yeah. Actually, fun fact about that, because someone put the ESPN numbers, and it was like, obviously, the ones you think of, like, with 99.9% more than that. But it was like, Indiana, Ohio State, 99.9%. And then the third highest was actually Oklahoma, for some reason, at 99.9%. And obviously Oregon was 99.9, but it's like, why is Oklahoma's 99.9 bigger than Oregon's 99.9? Like, it actually, Oregon's 99.9 should be higher than Oklahoma's, whatever. It doesn't matter, but it's just a weird thing where, at least in their, but I think Notre Dame should be fine. I think there's been this whole debate about, Miami beat Notre Dame head-to-head, therefore they should be ahead of them. But the committee hasn't been doing that, and unless the committee just decides, actually, we should have been doing this the whole time, I don't think they're going to do that. Should Miami be in? Yeah, both are models. I have them 5th, you have them 9th. Miami should be in. The team that shouldn't be in, it's like most of the SEC teams, like Ole Miss probably should be, and Oklahoma probably shouldn't, or those should be borderline. But because of the way the system works, they're locks now because of their wins. And had Oklahoma lost to LSU, this would be a lot easier to do. And they should have lost to LSU. And had Auburn beaten Alabama, this also would have been a lot easier too. But they didn't. So we are where we are. And I think that's the problem.
Yeah, and what's interesting, you look at your model is really instructive here. We have, just hang with me here. I have 1, 2, 3 Big Ten teams and an independent and an ACC team and a Big 12 team before you get to your first SEC team.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty much in line with that in terms of my power ratings. And again, it just speaks to the best teams are in the Big Ten and a lot of good teams. The most good teams are in the SEC. And what's interesting, not to make this a playoff preview, it's not the good team that wins the playoff. You can't go through that and just with a good team. You have to be an elite team. We'll talk about that in about a week or so when we're doing our playoff preview here. As you said, the toughest team to rank here, and for me too, is Texas A&M. Their 17.5 average rating, and this is an average between the BuckMetrics and Athena Power ratings. That's 11-12 territory, but they do have they have a strong wins above average, and that just speaks to, okay, there's no awesome team in the Big Ten, but every week is tough. You win these games that like only your average FBS team would have a 20% chance of beating. That adds up, man. You just win those, even if it's in the bottom half of the SEC. And that Texas game just makes them really tough. I don't know. Like I said in part one, unless Marcel Reed was just trying to throw off the model so he could get down in his own team at big odds, hard for me to back Texas A&M. I don't want to make it just one game as the dispositive data point. That was the only team they played in the top half of the SEC.
Yeah, that's the point, right? With the exception of Notre Dame, and that was early in the season. I think a lot of people didn't really pay attention to Texas A&M because they just kept chugging along, right? They kept winning and winning. They beat Arkansas, fired their head coach. They beat Auburn. Auburn fired their head coach. Right? They just left a trail of destruction in their way. But like Texas, since they played Notre Dame, that was the best team they played all season, right? And I think a lot of people are like, oh, maybe Texas was actually that good. But I think the real answer is, actually, no, maybe Texas is who we thought they were. Maybe it's just Texas A&M that wasn't actually that good, right?
Yeah.
Like, maybe, hey, yeah, they barely beat Auburn. They barely beat Arkansas. They beat Auburn, and they probably shouldn't have. They covered against Auburn, but they shouldn't have. They should have lost to South Carolina, but they pulled that one out. Like, I think if you start looking at the results, you're like, okay, yeah, they were close against those three teams, and those three teams are nowhere near the top 25 here. And they were close against them, and they got blown out by a Texas team that we both have around the 15-16 mark. If you try to apply some sort of power rating to that, you get Texas A&M around the mid to low 20s, and that's exactly where I have them. I have them at this is why I just said screw it. I'm just going to go with my model because honestly, if you do the math that way, that's where you get Texas A&M, and that actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's a good point in that. I'm curious if you agree with this too. I wouldn't want to, like I said, I don't want to make one data point dispositive and say, yeah, they stink. But that Texas A&M loss reinforces the narrative about they didn't play anybody in the top half of the conference, so it's hard to really be sure what this team is. If I'm just starting from scratch, I don't know if I literally am starting over like the committee says. Do I have A&M in the top 12? I don't know. What about you?
Hard to say. Body of work is not as impressive as maybe somebody else, but winning matters, and they have 11 wins. I wouldn't classify them as getting blown out by Texas. It was a 3-point game in the fourth quarter. It was a close competitive rivalry game that they didn't win, but they went out and beat Notre Dame and beat the other teams on their schedule. The really puzzling performance was South Carolina, where they were down 30-3 at halftime and came back and won. If they didn't win that game, probably a different sort of conversation with Texas A&M as well. But
yeah, definitely.
I don't know. The other hard thing is you've got these week-to-week rankings that come out, and Texas A&M is third all season, and you can't. How far can you drop them with one loss? You can't drop them to 15. You kind of get to a point where they continually.
Yeah, I agree. Like the committee, the committee can, but I can. I don't matter. So that's
yeah.
But
it's not. You're not dropping them though. If you're starting over every week, and you say, what makes up my 11 wins here? You got one in week 2 against a Notre Dame team that's very different. Come on. The Notre Dame team that they beat is so completely different from Notre Dame now. Yeah, credit for winning at South Bend. They've gotten some unfair aging. I think we call it like the Brad Pitt win. He just doesn't age. Yeah, it's a Brad Pitt win.
Yeah, the two teams that I would say, Oklahoma and BYU should not be in. Just my opinion.
All right.
I agree on Oklahoma and probably BYU too.
Oklahoma's. I can't on Oklahoma, and I hate you guys picking me in the corner to defend the program that just craps on USC because of Lincoln Riley. That defense keeps them in every game. Every game. That's the thing. And it's hard to go against that. The offense keeps the other team in every game, though. So that's the problem, too. One more thing before we move on from my poll here. Doug, you might remember I asked you when I had my first ratings, and I said, I have Arizona's really good. Is this going to last? And we said, yeah, it's going to last. And Danny Gonzalez are doing another victory lap on that. And we looked a little silly for a while there, but they came back. And I do want to give the committee credit in ranking Arizona last week, being ahead of the curve. I don't believe either the coaches nor the AP had Arizona in their top 25. So good job on the committee. But as always, better job by you and I, Duck.
Naturally.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate your modesty on that. All right. I put together a little different graphic here. Instead of the G5 top 10s, I've taken the BuckMetrics strength of record model, or strength of record. I've taken the Athena power ratings, and I've taken Robert's model. And what I've done here is I've done the 5 teams that kind of have a stake in the last 2 playoff spots here. JMU, if they win, has an argument. The winner of Virginia, I'm going to say, or Duke, has an argument. And the winner of North Texas and Tulane has an argument. So if I go by, in theory, the strength of record should be really the driving force here at the end of the day, right? If we're looking to basically see the best team, it should be who you're beating. I've got James Madison by a pretty substantial margin here over North Texas. Virginia's 4th in the wins above average. Obviously, Duke is well behind the rest here. I guess my first question is just to you two. Realistically, does James Madison have a shot here? Let's just assume that Virginia wins, just so we don't drive Duck crazy here. If Virginia wins, does James Madison have an argument here? Because it'd be over Tulane, North Texas.
I think they're gonna. I think if Virginia wins, they put Virginia in. I think.
Assuming that gets in. Yeah. But there's 2. But this is for 2 spots.
Yeah, I'd say so. I'd assume it's either going to be North Texas / Tulane, and then Virginia. I don't think they put James Madison in because James Madison did lose. Although it was a close game, they did lose by 2 scores to Louisville, and I think Virginia upset Louisville, or did Louisville beat Virginia? I can't remember.
Virginia beat Louisville. They lost a non-conference game to NC State, even though they play in the same conference. And then they lost by 1 point, or a close loss against Wake Forest.
Yeah. So that's what I think they're going to say. They beat Louisville. James Madison didn't, therefore. But that being said, if it was Duke, I think it'll be North Texas / Tulane and then James Madison over Duke. Because they're going to say they had 5 losses. Which that's not how power rankings work, but okay. Fine.
Yeah, you have Duke second here in your model too. Sorry, Duck, I cut you off.
Just think about what you just said there. If Duke wins, the ACC is going to be left out. And I can almost assure you that Virginia will be playing 17 on 11 all game because those Zebras are not going to let that happen. I'm not going to say that it's been carnival rigged, but they're not going to let that happen.
Can I just ask you a question? Now, you already have action on this game in a very specific way. If you truly believe that, why would you bet on this sport?
I just believe the ACC is going to influence. It's just like what the ACC did however long ago where they had some tiebreakers to determine a certain playoff, and then they just changed it on the fly and said, yeah, we're putting this team in the ACC championship game because they're going to give us a better chance to win in the playoff. They just make it up as they go. I would not be shocked if once we get through the Friday results and we know it's the American champ, and then we have seen James Madison beat Troy by 2 or 3 touchdowns, I just feel like we're going to get one of those situations where you'll see Virginia get the calls.
Maybe that's why it's the nightcap, right?
Bury it in the same time that the Big
It's always the nightcap.
Big Ten championship game. Bury it during.
It's always the nightcap. It's the same slot every year. They always play Saturday at 8 o'clock.
Okay. I remember one year, like maybe 2019. I think the Big Ten was like a later spot.
I always remember the Big Ten being late and the SEC being in the afternoon and the MAC in the morning.
The SEC loves the afternoon slot. Yeah, the Big Ten is always at noon, even though they're more on the West Coast. The Big 12 is always noon, even though they're on the West Coast. And the SEC is at 3, even though they're 3:30, even though they're on the East Coast. And the Big Ten, which is definitely on the East Coast, is on 8:30. So I don't fully understand that. Even though the SEC usually get the night slot there on ESPN, so they should be the. It should be the other way around, but I don't know. Whatever. No, yeah, you're right. That's usually the layout. The ACC usually is the nightcap, but it's just funny that it just gets buried with the Big Ten championship game, so no one's going to be watching the ACC championship game.
All right, so it sounds like we're settling on Virginia's definitely in if they win. And if Duke wins, they're just not making it.
I would assume
Robert,
that's a very realistic case. 7-5 Duke would not be in.
The thing is, here's my question for you. I'll ask a question for you, Duck and Buck. Duke versus James Madison. Who's the favorite in that game?
Ooh, I like that question.
Let's see here.
I don't know who the favorite in that game would be.
That's the thing. My model very clearly has Duke. It's close. I have Duke 22 and I have James Madison 27. My model does Duke, I guess, marginally. The thing is, watch for this week if, like, somehow Duke is, like, 25th. If the committee ran, that would be so funny. Could you imagine if they put them 20? It'd be so funny. Be like, no, you're not actually doing this, are you?
They push out Arizona after beating Arizona State, totally shut them down. Yeah, you know what? Duke's better.
Yeah, it would be asinine.
Yeah. Did you come up with a number on that game that Robert just neutral field? I'm
JMU 3.5.
You have JMU favored. Wow, I'd have Duke favored. I get having again. It'd be great if we could see that game. That'd be a fun game to see, but we'll never see it because hotel rooms or something. I don't know, but yeah, I think Duke would be favored in that game. But
Duke's defense is so awful.
That's the thing.
There are 11
but their
folding chairs out there.
And just to start to scare you, they did score 49 against I think a really good, you would appreciate this, a good Wake Forest defense. Wake Forest defense came on really strong last half of the season. That got my attention, as I said at the end of part one. I don't know who I'd have as a favorite, but I can just tell you in my mind, it's less than a field goal spread. It's somewhere between 2.5 plus minus in terms of a spread here. So, appreciate that question, Robert. Yeah, okay. So, basically, literally, it's as simple as Duke wins and things fall apart.
The real problem is if BYU wins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because then you're bumping Notre Dame or Alabama or Ole Miss. And I think they could bump Ole Miss anyway without a coaching staff.
We talked about that in part one.
Yeah. And plus, both of us have Ole Miss, just to go back here, 14, and that's probably a little lower by raw power rating here. You've got them 13. We both have them the outside looking in. It wouldn't break my heart. And then you take, that's with Lane Kiffin, right? Now you just say you don't have your head coach. What are they going to have, like, the offensive line coach calling plays? Do we know about this? This is where it gets really weird. Because the offensive staff pretty much left, right?
Why is Oklahoma safe? Like, is it just because they beat Alabama?
I don't think they should be.
Like, they lost to Texas. Everybody's acting like Oklahoma's, like, just safe. There's no way they could, like, they lost to Texas. Okay, they beat Alabama, and they beat Michigan, who has 3 losses. So is that, like, they beat Tennessee, and they, like, lost to Ole Miss? Like, is that really that impressive? That's, like, Alabama could have 3 losses. Like, why is Oklahoma safe?
Because I play in the right conference.
Yeah, they did have a tougher schedule. I think a tougher schedule than most in the SEC. Also, I'll put it this way: I feel comfortable. I would put Oklahoma ahead of A&M if we're at least starting fresh and looking at the whole top to bottom. Okay. Who would you have favored neutral field, Oklahoma or A&M?
But then that's when we start putting 2-loss teams in front of 1-loss teams, and people get very angry when we do that.
Care. I don't get angry. I get angry when we have to group them by number of losses.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, yeah. Who would you have favored in Oklahoma versus A&M?
I want to say Oklahoma minus like 1.5, minus 2.5. Like, I'm not going higher than that.
Yeah. Yeah. The total obviously is like going to be like 30.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah. But they're not going to be that close in the ratings.
No.
No, that's a good question. All right, we're skipping most of the metrics here, but especially to end the season, we cannot go without the final bum list of 2025. The only change here, and God bless this guy for playing his way back on, jumping just into the number 1 spot, not even debuting on the charts at number 8, right to the number 1 spot. Kyron Drones, Virginia Tech, apex of 45 on the season, well done. I put the stats here. I'm going to see if I can say these without laughing. Just an awesome 4 of 16 for all of 78 yards and 2 interceptions. Really well done against a pretty good Virginia defense. The bum list just isn't the bum list unless some guy just shows the mettle just to suck it up and just play his way onto it for the last one of the year. I got to say, if your quarterback plays this bad, he might just get his coach fired, right?
Yeah.
He won't be playing for James Franklin next season.
No. Is he done? Is he a senior? I think Drones. He's got to be, right?
I thought he was a junior, but I could be wrong.
Oh, boy. Okay. Coming to Georgia Southern next year, Mr. Kyron Drones. Is that fair?
Yeah.
All right. Good job, bum list here. Nico did not play his way off. I was confident he would, but I guess just the past defenses of Nebraska, Washington, and USC were too much for him. We'll see. DJ Lagway's going to be at a different school next year, right? I don't think Jen Summerall's going to invest in a reclamation project there. Is that fair?
Is he in an FBS school?
Coming to Georgia Southern, DJ Lagway. Well, this is going to be like the stock answer.
It's going to be like
South Florida.
Yeah, Sun Belt, American, new Pac-12, new Mountain West. One of those.
Maybe he's a package deal with Billy Napier at South Florida.
Maybe.
Okay, 5% serious there. All right. You guys want to do some games here? Since Duck is with us, we just have folded Island Time into this preview, so this is it for the week. We will do these chronologically, starting with the Sun Belt Championship, Troy at James Madison. The spread a mere 21.5 points. Just get the formalities out of the way. My model has this going under quite comfortably. I've got totals of 37 and 40 with a posted total of 47. Robert's got it pretty much on the number here, so not going to argue about the total here. I don't think that there's much question about who's going to win. The question here is James Madison going to cover the 21.5. My models have it with a little bit of margin here of 3 to 5 points. Robert's doesn't. Robert's model has a lot of faith in Jared Parker. Again, Troy's just been the lucky team. Then they beat Southern Miss. I don't know. They just keep on confounding me. Just to add the intangibles here, I just think that JMU, they're going to do everything they can to leave no stone unturned, to use my late grandfather's language, in making the case. So if they can win by 50, they will win by 50, just to do everything possible to get a playoff berth here. Duck, I'll start with you. Do you see, is 21.5 just prohibitive from playing JMU here?
It's 23.5 now, pegged everywhere. Oh. So that's what the current market shows, is 23.5. And I think JMU's defense is legitimately nasty per Sun Belt standards. They are so strong against the run, against the pass. They don't give up explosive plays. They're good in the red zone. They're just really buttoned up defensively. The problem that I have is Troy has now 2 good offensive performances in a row now with Goose back at quarterback, so it's really hard to imagine that they're completely shut down. We see the totality of their season, and the Old Dominion performance was certainly the anomaly we wouldn't expect to see happen again. And James Madison has played with their food time and time again this year. They struggled with Liberty for a half. They played a 14-7 game against Georgia State. They defeated Louisiana at home by only 10. They struggled with Marshall. They struggled with Wazoo. It was just so many struggles where you looked up in the middle of the third quarter and JMU was still in a tight battle. And I think Troy is well coached. And I think that they have some pieces on defense that can at least provide some resistance and make it difficult for JMU to operate. We've seen JMU struggle offensively. If that ground attack is not absolutely humming, then they struggle to convert on, if they get behind the chains, if it's third and medium or worse, they really struggle to get out of that. And so they oftentimes have to punt and play the field position game and lean in on their defense. That would matriculate the under, and that would really necessitate a lower scoring contest. But they also operate very slowly, 123rd in tempo, so we're not going to get a lot of pace out of JMU. It would be hard for me to envision them winning or leading by 14 in the fourth quarter and intentionally being rude about trying to pour it on late. So if they're going to win by extended margin, they're going to have to do that early. They're going to have to just completely control the game and throttle them 45-7, or maybe they punch in a late score to really try to extend the margin and impress people. But I can't imagine them doing something like James Franklin would do, calling timeouts to try to force a punt up 35 to punch another one in or something crazy like that. I think we're getting to a point where if we see 24.5 flash, I might take a stab on Troy. I just team this line. My power ratings are nowhere close. And so I just think we're getting to that sort of territory where if Troy can score 10 points, they can cover.
Wow. Okay. Let me just, before I just get to the point spread, I have a different take on the they won't run it up thing. Number one, like I said, I think they're going to do everything they can to get the as eye-catching margin as possible. Number two, Bob Chesney doesn't care about hurting anybody's feelings in the Sun Belt because he's headed to UCLA. Hey, F you all Sun Belt folks. See you in my next life. Different interpretation there. You answered my question that I was going to ask, so I'll ask Robert this. And I'll start by saying, if I got 28.5, I can't trust Troy. And look, I guess I know that they're outplaying their metrics by my standards, in that they're one of the 5 luckiest teams in FBS by the BuckMetrics luck factor. Would 28.5 be enough to entice you, Robert, on Troy?
No, I don't see myself betting on Troy specifically in this game. I do have some James Madison futures, and I think that because the spread is so massive, like a very minimal cost to hedge that out. Lock in a couple $100 profit just for nothing. I think that's what the play is here, and just enjoy the game. Because again, yeah, Bob Chesney is going to UCLA. Does he want to win this game? Yeah, probably. But at the same point in time, if something were to happen, this game gets weird. Is he thinking, hey, if I win this game, do I have to play another game? Do I then have to play another game on top of that? Versus, hey,
do I have to? Excuse me? You want to rephrase that?
He would want to.
He'd want to play. Yeah, he'd want to play in the playoffs. But like, JMU has had a couple of close games. Now, whatever, they're still a really good team. Troy has done a lot of weird things. I feel like just leveling off those futures, locking in that profit. Like again, like we're not talking here like buying at Troy like plus 120 or something here. We're looking at 11-1, 12-1, very small cost to lock in some wins there. No, I think that's the play, but no, if I was actually having to bet on Troy here, yeah, I need probably close to that 28. And even at 28, I'd probably be like, yeah, I wouldn't touch it there.
Yeah, Duck, when you said, I didn't ask you about this, when you said your numbers don't have it close, what would you have what do you have this game at?
Like 19.
Okay. And so you're saying versus that, if you're getting more than a field goal margin, it starts to get your attention?
Yeah, once you get over 24.5, I think if you're not going to take 28.5 with Troy, would you give me 28.5? I'll take 28.5 if you're giving that out. It's like these Sun Belt Conference Championship games, you remember, these games get weird. Marshall was a significant underdog last year and destroyed Louisiana. Troy won the Sun Belt in 23 and 22. These games can just be a little wonky, and rarely in the Sun Belt do they go exactly according to plan. So I just think there's a chance there's going to be a little bit of variance. You look at how JMU performed against Georgia State. They couldn't get a first down. They couldn't complete a pass. Struggled with Georgia Southern for a half. Struggled with Louisiana Lafayette the entire game. Louisiana Lafayette with no quarterback. And they just play down at times. And yeah, I wouldn't put it past Troy to show up. They're going to get on the plane. They're going to go through pregame warm-ups. They're going to show up. They're playing for a conference championship with a coach that I think is actually pretty decent coach. And you've got a second game now with Goose to where he's actually been productive. I could see this one not being like Yeah, JMU throttled App State right after App State lost in crushing fashion to their hated rival and deeper than hate Georgia Southern. And then they destroyed Coastal Carolina with no quarterback. That's a different story here. Like, just this remember this Troy defense? They led for 3 quarters at Clemson, and it was 7-7 with Memphis through 3 quarters. This Troy defense is actually pretty legitimate here. 24, you're talking 24, and I'm not saying Troy's going to win. And by the way, I don't think you're in danger. Don't hedge your futures and give the profit back. You don't need to do that. JMU will win. You're not in danger of losing the futures. I have 4-1 futures as well, and I've already spent the money. But 24.5? My goodness. You scored 2 touchdowns, and it's going to take 40 to beat you.
Yeah, boy. Maybe I'm just stuck on my preseason notion of them. I'll put it there. And I think I'll say this. Let's look at next year before we get to a conclusion on Jared Parker. Because there's 2 very disparate data points so far. Fair?
Sure.
All right. And I'll let the comment about Lunch Winfield. Is it Winfield? What's his last name?
Yeah, Winfield.
Lunch Winfield. Yeah, we'll revisit him next year too. But yeah, it's been a little. He's had some moments this year, a few. I call this next one the big one. It's all about the U, Conference USA. Jacksonville State, Duck, has made us look silly this year. We were certain this team was going to be horrible because they lost everything that was worth anything, and they were making a change from a guy who was way better than a Conference USA caliber coach to an unknown in Charles, not Chip, although Chip Kelly's name is Charles Kelly. Jacksonville State won this first one, I believe, by a field goal. Does that sound right? I believe that was a part of Cuse action. I think that was does that sound right?
26-35.
Okay. My metrics have this 1 or 2 point game. The Athena model has Kennesaw by 1. BuckMetrics model has Jacksonville by 2. Definitely not a bettable game here that I'm seeing. Both these models have it going over a little bit, but neither of these offenses can be trusted enough to get there. This is more just to play against 2 bad defenses here. Robert, your model, God bless you, has the right team here, the honorable team, the Kennesaw State Owls, with a 6-point win, which actually seems bettable when you got a touchdown margin there. Look, I can't be objective about this. I'm definitely pulling for Kennesaw. They actually have a top 10 quarterback in terms of raw apex as well. So and I guess, look, if we get to the metrics here real quick, this number just stands out so much. This is way beyond what any Conference USA quarterback should be doing. Now, Jacksonville State has made a lot of teams look silly by running the ball very well this year. Neither of these teams really enjoy playing, where are you, darling? Playing defense to an extent here. I'm not going to bet this one. I have the emotional investment in the Owls. But I think quarterback is such an important position here that I think Kennesaw State should get in points. Boy, if Robert gave me 76 US, I'd bet on the Owls. What about you, Duck?
It's painted everywhere now. Kennesaw's 2.5 point favorites, so that's the current line. Excuse me. I looked into this one pretty extensively. There is some possibility of some weather that's going to come into the area, some rain and some storms that could make this one a little bit jerky. Shouldn't affect the play too badly, but it sure could. Kennesaw should be able to throw the ball here. Both their quarterbacks that they've used, Williams and Amari Odom, have thrown it pretty well. You look at Kennesaw State, and they've really thrived on, and almost out of necessity because they're not very successful consistently on early downs, but they do get explosive chunk plays in the pass game pretty routinely, and that is something that Jacksonville State absolutely gives up. Gamecocks 108th defensively in surrendering explosive pass plays. Jacksonville State, very poor pass coverage, 4th worst in the conference, so that would make them about 124th in the country because the Conference USA pass coverage units are not very good.
Yes.
And so then you look at Jacksonville State. They're banged up at linebacker. They've got a couple of D linemen out. This defense could really struggle here to get stops, especially if the Kennesaw pass game is clicking. Now, on the other side, Jacksonville State should be able to run the ball here. They should be able to get the Cam Cook and the Caden Creel show going. Those two have just run all over everybody. Kennesaw giving up a ton of explosives on the ground. 3 linebackers are out with injury for the Owls, and that's huge here when you look at the participation report. They've got 3 of their top 5 linebackers are out. So I would imagine Kennesaw State is also not getting very many stops. I want to bet the over. I think it's really high scoring. But both red zone offenses have been atrocious. Kennesaw State, 43 red zone trips. Only 26 of those have been touchdowns, and 11 of those trips have been empty. And Jacksonville State, similar sort of song and dance. 53 red zone trips, only 31 touchdowns, and 16 red zone field goals. So I don't want drives getting into the red zone and then they're kicking a field goal. That's not what I'm looking for if I'm betting the over. So a little bit of weather, poor red zone production. I want to bet the over here, but I have not gotten to the window, and I'm definitely not at the window now because it's 59.5, which has exceeded a key number of 59.
Very fair, I guess. Robert, is it as simple as just like the quarterback position is? You might remember I came up with Apex Plus because I was angry last year about, geez, it's so hard just to have raw Apex because the passing games are so bad in the MAC that if you have a really bad passing defense and you're a MAC team, you're really bad because you have to try hard to give up passing yards in that conference. An analog here to Conference USA. The quarterback play is not great, and just this is I'll call it the Missouri State angle, where Missouri State was competitive so deep into the season because they know how to pass the ball. Just one thing doing it really well here, and Jacksonville State does do it running the ball. But geez, you have standout quarterback play. These defenses are even in terms of this. They stink. I just want to go with a quarterback here.
Yeah, for me, I've got Kennesaw State the favorite. I'm not touching this line. I did have Kennesaw State future, so that's good enough for me. But no, I agree with it. I think that Kennesaw State probably should be the favorite in this game. I have them. You have them in the Athena model, has them slightly favorite. Your model has Jacksonville State favorite, but barely as well. But no, I think Kennesaw State should be the favorite here. I think, again, yeah, both defenses are pretty bad, but Kennesaw State has a functional offense. Jacksonville State has a less functional offense. That's all it really matters here. That's the beginning and end of the analysis for this game.
One other thing, too, looking ahead to next year, Doug. Again, we thought Jacksonville State was going to be bad. I think it's so hard to build a running offense in year one because you have to have like your offensive line in place and everything. It's really hard just to say, yeah, year one you're going to run the ball really well, and they've done it here. Seems like maybe an off-season little research project is looking into who this offensive coordinator is, and basically is he someone to really keep your eye on going forward?
Yeah, and the bigger picture for me is I have identified a couple of things that I plan to do with my off-season process pertaining to regular season wins. We put a lot of stock in Jacksonville State being down this season. What we did not put a lot of stock into was Liberty being horrific.
The L word. I knew you were going to say it.
Sam Houston, Delaware, Middle Tennessee, UTEP, Kennesaw. Kennesaw's a lot better, but there's so many of these teams in Conference USA that have been just absolutely atrocious. Is Jacksonville State a good football team? No. Are they in the top 120 talented football teams in the country? No. But they beat teams that ended up just being absolutely horrific, and they exceeded the win total. And so I am going to change my process on how I fire into those win totals. And a lot of it's because of this team here, because I really feel burned. I felt like we had a team that we had pegged that should have been 6-6 or worse. Fluky wins against Middle Tennessee, UTEP. They beat Kennesaw. I didn't necessarily think they should have. Could have lost last week to Western. Should have lost to Liberty, or could have. It's just so many things with the schedule, and some of the opponents being weaker than expected really burned us here. They also inherited a run scheme, so there wasn't a lot of change from what Rich Rodriguez's offense was with a predominantly rushing attack. They inherited that run scheme. If you try to run an offense like this in 1 year of change, like what Georgia Southern did was miraculous. They went to option, they went to a pass-happy attack, and it worked in year one. If they go back to the triple option next year, it's not going to be pretty.
Yeah.
And it's that sort of thing that I agree with you there, that it's really tough to install such a drastic, with the dichotomy of the offenses being so different, it's really tough to install that in 1 year.
Yeah, that's a good point. We talked about it a little too when it came out. It was Conference USA and MAC. It's just like some of these teams just get so bad they get picked over. You don't know which spare part's really going to congeal and make an actual team. It feels like. Yeah. All right. Okay. Playoff implications. Futures implications. This is a big one. North Texas. This is at Tulane. Right? This is at.
Yes.
What do they call it? Yeah. This. Yulman. I was going to say YOLO, but that's not it. This is YOLO for Eric. Both coaches here, as they will both be gone to bigger and better. Not surprising, better quarterback play for North Texas here. North Texas with a really good offense here by any standards, not just American Conference standards. Also better running the ball too. Better pass defense, which is curious considering this is a John Summerall team who's a defensive guy. Now, I forget his name. Cassidy, what's his name? The DC at North Texas?
Yeah, Skylar Cassidy.
Skylar Cassidy, yes. Got the name right, but in the wrong spot. Little trouble stopping the run here for Skylar Cassidy here. I'm a little befuddled by my model here, and it's probably because of the venue, Tulane. I've got North Texas with a much better offense, Tulane a decently better defense here. I've got this an even game, or Athena does at 34-34. BuckMetrics has this a 4-point game in favor of North Texas, which feels about right. It's in line with the posted number here. Robert and his very quarterback dependent or happy model really likes Mr. Mestamaker. Mr. Mestamaker, boy, that's not an easy one to say. By the score 40-29 over Tulane and their very susceptible defense here. I'm not going to bet this, but I definitely think the right team is favored here. We all, as we've talked about, we actually previewed this conference together, the three of us. We all like North Texas and the juicy odds. I will point out, before the pod dropped, like right before the pod dropped, North Texas was 20-1. And after the pod dropped, like literally days, I'm not saying I moved the number, but I'm not saying I didn't, they were 12. So maybe somebody's listening out there. And God bless you if you are, and also good luck in life. So I like North Texas here. I get a little concerned about the inability to stop the run, but I think that whatever Tulane does at North Texas will match it. This is not... Summerall's had better teams, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Again, not going to play it. I've got enough riding on it, but definitely if I got the 76 US from Robert, I'm in the mean green here. Are you getting down on this, or do you have enough at stake already?
I've got enough North Texas futures to the point where it's not worth it to bet in North Texas anymore on this, right? At that point, it's okay. Yeah, I love North Texas minus 2.5, but because of the futures, like, what's the point? Oh, okay, yeah, they win by 11. Okay, I've already won several $100s from the futures, so it doesn't matter. Yeah, that's my take on the game. I'd love to bet North Texas here if I didn't have the futures. 100% I'd be on North Texas minus 2.5, but I do, so there's really no point.
Very fair. And, what's interesting is we have different margins here, but we all have similar totals here. 68, 69, and 66. I think of that, Duck, and again, it's not like North Texas has an impenetrable defense, but this Tulane offense is not really, it doesn't take my breath away. So if the total's 67, that just sounds like a North Texas kind of game, right?
Yeah, and I actually think it'll be a game script that will not go as many North Texas games have gone this season. North Texas feasted on Temple, Rice, UAB, Charlotte, UTSA on the road, and they put up massive point totals on some horrific defenses. I don't think we'll see them in the high 40s or 50s here. And I actually think that if they do have the lead in the second half, they throttle down the tempo. We may not see as much explosiveness in the pass game. Against Rice, Mestamaker threw for 463 yards on 18 completions. It was insane. And I think we'll see just a little bit of a script that would actually cause me to lean to the under here. I think North Texas's defense is a lot stronger than maybe people realize. If they can stop the run here, they can really limit what Tulane wants to do. I know Ratzlaff will run around back there and try to create or whatever else, but I don't know necessarily if they're going to have a tremendous amount of success. My real concern here is there's a glaring red flag in a game that North Texas played where there was a lot of pomp and circumstance, there was a lot of hype. They were calling it the biggest game in UNT program history. And the lights were too bright for them when they played South Florida, and they lost by 4 or 5 touchdowns, and it was just an embarrassing performance in the second half. And I hope we don't see that sort of thing happen here where they're squeezing the ball too hard, or they're pressing, they're throwing passes that Mestamaker normally wouldn't throw. I hope they learned from that, because if the lights are too bright here, Tulane will just bring you out, especially at home. Tulane will bring you out to the deep end of the pool, and you can't get back. And that is just no fun to be in. I think North Texas is the better team. I think they should win this game. I think it barely stays under the total by just a hair. I would say 31-27 or something like that type of score. But with 22-1 futures on, this is one where I would not fault anybody for hedging a little bit out and guaranteeing some profit here, because Tulane at home is really tough to beat, and they've been there before. So this is a tricky spot for North Texas, a lot trickier, I think, than I wouldn't lay 2.5 here.
Interesting. Okay. I saw a lot of that South Florida game. I believe that was on a Friday night. Does that sound right?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was catching it while I was making dinner. But in fairness, South Florida can do that once they got you, and they can get you on the wrong side of the avalanche. And I just don't know if Tulane has that capability just to deep fry you. As you say, if Tulane's more going to be more like the crock potting, if you will, like cook you for 2 hours. But you make a good point about that.
I know they did it they did to Memphis and Duke.
I was gonna say, Duke doesn't play defense, but I'll put it. Yeah, this is interesting. I get raw numbers, I think, and let's just keep a note of this. North Texas defensive power rating of -2. I think that's probably better than what I have at Duke. So we'll see. On the topic of defense, does Skylar Cassidy, does Eric Morris bring him to Oklahoma State?
I would. Absolutely, how he's turned around this defense. And you even look at the scores that they've given up. UAB, Rice, Temple, there was a lot of garbage time in there. Their games were never out of reach, or those games were always out of reach at midway through the second quarter. There was just a lot of garbage time, so I can give them a free pass. If you remove some of the second half junk yardage and some of the second half scoring, this North Texas defense has been pretty lights out. Now, the problem is there are a couple of road performances where they haven't been lights out. And now they're on the road here. So, again, trust me when I say my heart will be all mean green on this one, and I really hope that they can do this. There are some things that I think are really concerning about this one here.
Very fair. Okay. The Mountain West title game. UNLV at Boise. Robert, you and I discussed this a little bit. Boise won the head-to-head, so I'm not outraged by Boise getting to host this one. Because to the extent that anything was earned here, they earned it. Pick how you want to handicap this. Do you want to go with the really good offense, or do you want to fade the really bad defense here? It's that simple in terms of UNLV. Which team are you expecting? And let me tell you, folks, this defense is really bad. Consistent, though. Consistently bad. I'm not really impressed with Boise. God bless you, Spencer Danielson, for those of us who had... Did you have Utah State last week, Duck? I know we talked about that. Did you actually play Utah State?
I did.
All right. Did you see how that covered for us? Did you catch the specific end of the game play? Not last game, but near the end of the game play?
The breakaway run where he goes down before the goal line, and then there's a holding call that was...
And then after that, on fourth down, in field goal range... Boise up by 1, and Spencer Danielson I guess he told his backup quarterback, I forget his name, I don't know, figure it out. So he goes for it on fourth down with no real, they weren't trying to run out the clock. I don't know if they even called a play. It was really bad, and a field goal there would have basically had a Boise cover. Thank you, Spencer Danielson. Now we get to see you go against Dan Mullen. Dan Mullen with no defense at all here. My models like Boise here, Athena by 10, BuckMetrics by 6. Robert has UNLV by 34. Robert, again, with the quarterback-dependent model. Now, my models have all of the Maddox Madsen stuff in there, where Robert has... What's this quarterback's name, Duck? I forget. Do
Well,
you remember?
Cutforth was the backup, but Madsen was cleared to play, so I think Madsen will be back.
Really? I thought he was out for the year. Okay.
I did too, so maybe there's just some gamesmanship going on, but they did send out some communication that he was suiting up and going to be ready to go.
They hope for
I'm
a
not
playoff
buying
berth,
it, but
like, with
that's
this
what
kind
they
of
said.
nonsense. Okay. That's interesting. I just don't know what to make of... I'll put it this way. There's a bunch of things that's getting me emotionally and confused here. I don't think UNLV was as good as a 10-2 team. I don't think they're as good as a record. I think they were lucky. It's very hard. It's very hard to back a team like USC or Tennessee that's good on offense and, on defense. You take a team that's legitimately bad on defense like this, and it's like you don't know what you're going to get in terms of from week to week. And somehow they went 10-2. It's not like they avoided all the... I don't remember them having an especially weak schedule here. Now, if I'm wrong on that, Duck, feel free to correct me. But I'm not sure where to go here. The nature of UNLV just makes them unbackable for me. I like you. I'm having a difficult time buying the Madsen thing. Some of the unknowns here, I just don't know where to go. Nobody is putting a gun to my head saying, bet this game or else. So I will gladly pass on this and just maybe expect it to be a matter of Dan Mullen is greater than, what's the sign, is greater than Spencer Danielson. And maybe it's just that simple. Duck, what do you think?
It's really hard. I'd like to see UNLV do well here, but they have historically not played very well against Boise State. And we saw this same song and dance last season in the cold on the blue turf. UNLV had this really good team, and they go out and get pounded, and that's just the way it's been for UNLV against Boise State. So I want to see the product on the field before I make a play on this one. I think UNLV will be able to run the football. Boise State at times has been shredded on the ground defensively. They don't stop the run, and they allow a lot of explosive runs. While I agree that if you look at the total body of work, UNLV's defense has been quite poor this season. 3 of the last 4 games they've played, they've held their opponents to 17 or less, so there has been some on-field improvement. And if you look at some of the yards per play and yards per game sort of metrics and some of the other advanced metrics for their actual defense, it's at least been better the last... My goodness, after allowing 9, 7, 8, 7 yards per play, they're back down to the 4.5, 5.5 yards per play. Hawaii couldn't even get a first down against these guys, and that was just incredible to see them shut that down. They're playing a little better. Now, with that said, they still have been shredded on the ground. They give up a ton of explosive plays. It's hard to imagine that they're going to get a lot of stops here. But I don't think that Maddox Madsen is all healthy, and if he's not mobile, it could be real tricky for Boise State. And if it is the backup quarterback that we end up seeing, I do not think that Cutforth is very good. And so there's a chance that could be the great equalizer here because he's just not a great quarterback when you look at situationally what throws he has to make. It just doesn't go well. So... we'll see. I'm not dying to run to the window and do anything here. I hope UNLV plays well.
Your gnome to Twitter, as it were, Steponaduck 1. We established that in your first ever appearance on the pod. An homage to the great movie Caddyshack. I thought you were going with this with Cutforth, also from the movie. Mr. Cutforth, you're not good. Don't know if you remember that in that line. That's where you're going with that, and I can't disagree. Robert, do you see any bettable here, unlike bettable angle, unlike Duck and I?
What I do is I just probably throw a little bit on UNLV +3. I think I may have gotten a 3.5 somewhere. But if you see a 3.5, just put something on the 3.5 and just call it a day. Just enjoy this game.
3.5 everywhere.
Yeah, so that's why I did get a 3.5. Yeah, actually, I was up to 4 now. Put something on 3.5, 4. It's 8 o'clock. It's the nightcap along with North Texas, but the other game's at 7, so it doesn't really matter that much. Honestly, I'm going to take better coach, better quarterback. That's it. I think that's why the line is 3, even though my model is seeing that. Other models, I think, are seeing it. I'd love to see the betting spreads on this, but honestly, just better coach, better quarterback. Just Bet on that, and then that's it. I know. I think Boise did beat them in the head-to-head this year. I think, and last year as
by
well.
4 touchdowns.
Yeah, but
I can't
Boise
count
has.
last year versus this year though, just because the dirt cutter thing that we've covered many
Yeah,
times.
I don't know. It says just again, better coach, better quarterback. I'll take that. I'll
Yeah.
take that every day in a championship game. At some point, UNLV will beat Boise. Maybe it's this year. I think the thing is, UNLV absolutely crushing Hawaii, and then Hawaii also being good is what's screwing with my model. That's why I have them as so. I think that's how Hawaii kind of crushes the model. Because it's like this team is good, but then UNLV crushed them. So then why is UNLV so good? So then that's why they're here. But again, I don't think either of these teams are particularly good. Neither of these teams deserve a spot like in the playoff, but they're playing in the championship game. So I'm gonna take the points with the better coach, better quarterback.
Hawaii is one of those. I think they're like a lesser version of Northern Illinois, but a feast or famine that can really screw with the model.
Yeah.
All right. Those are the Friday games. Don't know if you guys noticed this. All the Friday games are on campus and all the Saturday games are neutral site. Our first one here is BYU versus Texas Tech. When I did this slide, since that there's been some movement here, have we seen, has this gone across the big number of 14, Duck?
No, 13, 12 and a half, 13 and a half everywhere.
Dynamic here, especially just the latest news with Penn State making a run at the Kalani Sitake as head coach. Who knows how that kind of plays out here? I'll just get to this is an underplay for my model here. Texas Tech my model is feeding me, and my model looks at Texas Tech, says this is an awesome defense. Play them under. My model is pace agnostic, and I have gotten a series of heart attacks. Although Texas Tech more than often than not has hit the unders. They basically do it by just not trying in the fourth quarter and winning it with dignity, as Hambone would like to say. So thank you very much, Joey McGuire. Love you. And here, my model's going to say, yeah, check your testicular fortitude again. I've got this going under here. I've got a total of 44. Is that 50.5 right?
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe this isn't a play. Yeah, that's probably moved since I posted this in. All right, not an underplay here. There's not the 7 points margin, so I'm excusing myself from playing the under here. The line seems fair here. When I saw this one, that this is going to be where the Big 12 landed, without seeing the number, I just knew this one's going to be a bettable from a side. Just we know enough about both these teams. Now maybe Duck, you feel differently. It just feels like the 2 touchdowns is right here. Now maybe Texas Tech doesn't go gentlemen in the fourth quarter, and they extend a 2 touchdown lead to more like 3 or 4. I don't know. I'm expecting a low scoring game here. Not bettably the one standout. You've got a really good defense here in BYU and a standout defense here in Texas Tech, both better than the offenses here. So maybe that's the thing that keeps it close. But I'm not playing this one. If I was, it would be the under, and I guess I'd probably 13.5 seems fair. And this is not to slight BYU, who's been the find away team for all of this season. Now, didn't BYU get blown up by Texas Tech at Texas Tech a few weeks ago?
It wasn't a blowout. I think it was like a 15-point win, I think, if I remember correctly.
And that went under, yes. And I think that I was a little fortunate that because Texas Tech again went gentlemen in the fourth quarter and basically did the win with dignity thing, right?
I want to say it was like 25 to like 11 or something, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, that sounds right. Mm-hmm. And Joel Klatt was saying they could have won 45 to 11 or something like that. So
yeah,
29 to 7.
Okay. Safely under the under. Thank you. Under the total. I'm not dying to bet this one. Interesting game. I don't know. I'm guessing if BYU, they're a find the way team, and maybe if they're not finding a way, it's not going to be close. I don't know. Tricky read team on BYU. I really don't have any investment thesis here. Definitely not playing this one, other than if I guess if the number goes up, I'll play the under to my high here is 45, so it gets to 52. I'll play the under, but otherwise I'm just watching. What about you, Duck?
So, use drives in that game. 30 yards, -1 yard, 9 yards. They had 1 touchdown drive for 75 in the fourth quarter when they were down 26-0. They had a 22-yard punting drive, 4 yards, 15, -4, 19, 23, and 16 yards. That was the drive result for Brigham Young. They had 255 total yards on 65 plays, so about 4 yards a play on average. 3 out of 14 on third down, and 2.5 yards per rush on the ground. Texas Tech absolutely shut these guys down like you would not believe. And I do think that they were kind about it. They settled for 5 field goals. And it was just one of those situations where the game was called by Tech to where they knew that BYU was not going to be scoring this game. They knew they weren't going to be able to move the football. Texas Tech was completely reliant on their defense, and every time that they did stall offensively, there was really no need to really press and add risk to the game. It was just, we'll kick a field goal and continue to add to the lead. And I just don't see a path for BYU moving the ball downfield, stacking successful plays together enough to get into a scoring sort of situation routinely in this one. I don't think that they'll be able to run the ball. We've already seen it, how they were shut down completely by this Texas Tech defensive front, which is just so nasty. If you look at what Tech has done this season in the front seven, they get after you, they create havoc. They have 37 sacks and 88 tackles for loss this year. They just make you so uncomfortable back there at quarterback. And I just think we see that again. And I agree with the underplay. I think that Texas Tech, while everybody thinks that they're this just big, high-flying, wildly successful scoring offense, hasn't been exactly that this year, and they're actually 58th in pace. So you think about those blazing fast Texas Tech teams of the past, that is not this team. They're balanced. They run the ball significantly more than they throw it. And it's just one of those games that I see BYU consistently behind the chains, consistently in situations where the execution is going to have to be so off the charts great for them to be able to hang in this game, and I just don't see it. But we've seen this play out before. I'm going to go back to the well with it. I'm actually locking in this bet as we're speaking on air. BYU team total under 17.5. Favorite play of the weekend.
Your favorite play? Wow.
They're not scoring 3 times here. They're not scoring 3 times here.
We'll see.
All right. By the way, that segment brought to you by Jacob Rodriguez for Heisman campaign. You make a very good case on the Texas Tech defense, though. Boy, 17's a low number.
Yeah.
Man. All right. So we've got
Is it, though? I mean, if you look at Texas Tech, they have allowed point totals of 7, 14, 14, 10, 11, 17, 0, 7, 9, and 0. That was 10 of them. And then they lost to Arizona State, allowed 26. And at Kansas State, they gave up 20 on the road. So 2 out of 12 opponents have exceeded 17 only. It's just
Dumb and Dumber, so you're saying there's a chance. No, I'm joking.
Well, yeah, there is no such thing as a risk-free wager. But Bear Bachmeier against that secondary that is just absolutely elite in pass coverage. You look at them, 4th nationally in pass success rate, 5th in preventing explosive passes, 5th in red zone efficiency, 4th in yards per pass allowed, 1st against the rush, 2.3 yards per carry on the ground, 81 rushing yards per game given up this year.
I cannot disagree with everything. It just, and I want to join you. It's just hard for me to go that heavy on a play that is against all 3 models here. The under 17.5. But you make a very compelling case. Robert, you don't even have this going under. You've got it right on the total here, too.
No, yeah. I think it is. One thing I will say about this game is I'm not sure if I'm playing this game. I think I'm probably not playing this game. But one thing I will find interesting is that the last time, I think we didn't have it as a close game. We both models said under, or all 3 models, I guess, said under, no play on the spread. I think we basically all had it around the spread. You've got 5 I've got a 9, and then another 8. That is
Yeah.
all. It's not necessarily a technical full play, but that definitely falls within that 13.5 point spread. I will say some weird stuff has happened in these Big 12 championship games. Remember, Kansas State took down TCU that year. Some weird stuff has happened in some of these games. I I think Texas Tech is the better team. Texas Tech should control this game. They should be able to put BYU away. But BYU's only loss is to Texas Tech in a yes, it was 29-7, so not the closest of games. But still though, that's a relatively close game. If BYU learns something, they get some momentum going in here. There's a chance they could do something in this. Again, I'm not betting this. I don't think I'm going to touch this. But again, all three models are showing some value on BYU spread here. And I don't love ignoring something like that. I like if all three models are saying the same thing. Like again, there's a difference between a low scoring game in which the team basically the underdog covers the spread versus a low scoring game where the favorite covers. It's not a lot of difference there. Right? Like it's okay, yeah, it's a touchdown here, a touchdown there, something like that. It's not the biggest of difference. It's a lower scoring game, which 50 is the average, so this is basically an average game, but it was much under average before. Also interesting the fact that at that point we had, at least my model also had an under. It was a dual model play, the under. Now my model's saying over. So I'm curious as to why our models are seeing something fundamentally different this time than last time. But other than that, I think this is just a very interesting game to watch.
Yeah, well, I would ask what's changed if you look at the results since these two
Yeah.
teams have played before. What's
Yeah.
changed?
And no, you're right, 100%. Nothing has changed, but why is the model showing something slightly different now? Again, the model uses knock-on effects. Oh, this team beat this team, but then they didn't. But they didn't do it. It didn't look good, right? So I think those knock-on effects are the difference. We don't. It's like imperceptible to us, but when we do the math, we maybe see it differently. Again, I'm just guessing. I don't know, but that's the only difference I see here. Again, one, it's low. Ours is relatively lower. Mine's on the total number. Yeah, the Bucks model is under, but at the same point in time, these numbers are closer than the first time. Across all three models are closer than the first spread. So, yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. All right. Lost in the Saturday shuffle, I think, a little bit, is the Redhawks of Miami, Ohio versus Western Michigan. Lance Taylor, congratulations. You got there 1 year late, but better late than never. I'm looking at the numbers, and I'm not sure how you did it with that offense. Not a good passing offense, Mr. Taylor. Miami of Ohio, I believe, help me out here. Is Miami, is this, was DeQuan, I'm questioning the tense and the person. Was their quarterback DeQuan Finn? Am I
Yes.
right here on both of those? Was, and him.
Yep.
He's left the program. And somehow they made it through the Wacky Mac, and I think this came down to definitely the last week of the regular season here. Western favored by 2.5. My gosh, let's just look at this real quick. I've got decent level, MAC level squads here on offense and defense, except for this offense here. Is Walt Belser the offensive coordinator there? I'm almost asked this rhetorically. It would have to be with these numbers here. So they're doing it on defense with Western. I've got this. The Athena has this basically Miami and Ohio by 2. My model by a more comfortable 6. Robert by 4. This is not quite a play just because of the Athena model. Now the thing is, my models are quarterback agnostic. Robert actually, who has Miami of Ohio by 4, though your model actually would not have any DeQuan Finn in that result. So feels like in a Miami of Ohio play. I don't know if I will. I don't like to go against my guy Lance, although I should be ruthlessly objective as I call myself here. I don't know. Just let me go to you on this, Duck. Do you have any kind of opinion? I don't know, so I'm looking for you just for any kind of information on Miami's offense post DeQuan Finn.
It looked terrible against Buffalo for a little while, and then they brought their third string quarterback in and caught a flash in the pan, and then they destroyed Ball State last week, who had nothing to play for. I don't know. I like Western Michigan here. I think they can run the football a little bit. I think their defense has been playing absolutely top-notch football. I think Miami of Ohio is just so uncreative, undynamic, unoriginal in their offense. you can almost just tell what type of play they're going to run based on the situation and what formation they line up in. And there's just zero creativity on the goal line. They are just so easily predictable, and I think that Western Michigan defense, you're talking about a MAC defense that is top 60 nationally in everything. And they're 33rd in yards per play, 31st in overall success rate, 18th in red zone scoring. And that's where Miami of Ohio is really going to have problems here is when I look at a team, I want to know how they convert on third down, how they run the football, and how they convert in the red zone. And 23 out of 40 is just not proficient enough in the red zone in order to necessitate winning the game or covering a short number here. I'm not a believer in it. I'm a believer in Chuck Martin, and we've seen it year after year that he prepares his team well for MAC play, but we know what Buffalo's been. We've seen the seat-of-your-pants football that Buffalo's played all season and the careless turnovers and the flippant way they've had with the football. It's been terrible to watch. And beating Ball State last game of the season, let's look at what they did before that. They played two of the upper echelon teams in MAC play in Ohio and Toledo, and they lost both of them. And I think this game will be close. I think it'll be low scoring. But Western Michigan has thrived in these lower scoring defensive battles where they can lean on their defense to just consistently show up, shut down their opponents. And now they've scored 30 points in back-to-back weeks with this offense kind of finding with a little bit of run game, a little bit better pass game. I think Western Michigan's winning the MAC.
Wow. Still 2.5 point favorite. I was just looking up. It's funny that you're talking about this game and you're calling the offense that is not coached by Walt Bell undynamic, uncreative, and so on and so forth. Wow. That says a lot. All right. Robert, he makes a good case. If the Western Michigan offense shows up, yeah, because the defense is there. For sure. I'm pretty sure this leads the MAC here. The 0.9. That's not very MAC. That's FBS average, which is not what a MAC team does. Do you see it going that way, or are you just going to lay off of this one?
Look, all three of our models have value on Miami of Ohio, right?
Yeah.
Not a huge value, but 4-ish points depending on the model. 6 points on your model specifically. I'm not touching this, as has been well documented. I do not do well in MAC championship games. I always pick the wrong one. If anybody has any Western Michigan futures, I will gladly bet Miami of Ohio for you. I'll bet it for you. But other than that, I have no desire to bet this game because I always get burned by it. I'm always like, this is the right plays to make in this game, and then I get burned. So there's far better things. I'm going to be watching the Big 12 championship game. I'm not going to care about this game. So I think the play is Miami of Ohio, but I'm not touching this.
We'll also point out that the models have a total on this game of 46, 40, and 42. Not the most watchable game, I think, that we'll see this weekend. Fair to say?
Not the most watchable, no.
All right.
You just got to think, too.
Yes. Please.
Miami of Ohio's on a third-string quarterback. And they got into this game via tiebreaker scenarios, backed their way in. You put a third-string quarterback in Ford Field, in that dome environment, in the MAC title game against that defense, and I just think the best unit on the field can be trusted more consistently than assuming Western Michigan's offense is not going to show up when they've scored 30 points in back-to-back games and appears to be a much more pathed offense. There's such a pathway to them having success over the last several weeks. But they beat good teams. Central Michigan and Ohio are good football teams, and they found ways to shut those offenses down and win close games. Again, I'm not saying this game's going to be a 3-touchdown blowout, but I just, at the end of the day, think that Western Michigan is... You called it last year that they were going to be vastly improved. Kind of thought we were going to see this run last year with Lance Taylor's bunch. And this is not a train I want to step in front of with what and just in game too, right? Like they led Eastern Michigan 31-7 into the fourth quarter, gave up a couple cheapies at the end, but the game was well decided. And the passing offense looked a lot better from Brock Lowry, and they were hitting the tight end over the middle, and they were just a little bit creative in their play calling to try to get the running back out of the backfield in space and throw him the ball. And the run game with Lowry and Jaden Buckley looked really crisp. This is the team I want to bet on here is Western Michigan.
All right. Fair points. Although maybe not watched, though. As we said.
Oh, no. Well, no. You remember who you're talking to here. I live and breathe this and can't get enough of it. This game could be played on July 4th, and I may forgo the barbecue to watch it because I love college football, and you're not going to have it for 6 months. I'll be watching.
Wow, okay. I love it too. Just MAC's not been the most... For some reason, I found Conference USA a little more exciting this year. It was just... The MAC just blended into everything. But, okay, fair. Say hello to Lance Taylor for me while you're watching. All right. This number I was checking, Georgia up to a 2.5-point favorite against Alabama. Interesting in that one team, I don't know. Alabama, does Alabama have... Let's just start with this, both of you. Robert, does Alabama have to win to stay in the playoff?
I think if they lose in a blowout, they're in trouble. But if they lose a close game, they're fine.
Okay. Does that sound right to you, Duck?
No, I think they absolutely have to win in order to get in.
Okay. How do we think Kalen will... Go ahead, please.
I just think when you jockey out a 3-loss team and you're stacking resumes between them, Notre Dame, Ole Miss, Oklahoma, go down the line. If they have a third loss, I think they're the odd team out.
So then who gets in ahead of them? Is it Miami?
No, it would be... let's see here. Pull this back up.
It have to be, right? Unless BYU... Well, no, if BYU wins. Yeah, BYU's like win or else. You made a case for Vandy, but I can't imagine Vandy would jump.
No, because they're going to... See, I think it's going to be either Miami or Texas. It's going to be one of them. And if it's Texas, then they're going to say Alabama and Texas should be ranked ahead of Vanderbilt because both of them beat Vanderbilt. Which is whatever.
Yeah,
right?
this is troubling. This is very troubling. It could be...
Yes? You don't want to say it. I'm dying to hear it.
Yeah, it could be Miami.
Yeah.
Okay.
Especially if Duke wins. They're not going to win. We know that. But if they do, and it's JMU and North Texas / Tulane, and the ACC is looking at being left out, and the committee has the choice between putting in what would that be, fifth or sixth SEC team, I could see them leaving Alabama out. Lost to Florida State. Who was the other bad loss in there? Oklahoma. Yeah. And then you lose here. It's unfortunate that they have to play in the game because I could see a scenario where neither one of these teams really wants to be there, but I think Alabama has to win.
And that's, yeah, exactly. It's interesting where, yeah, I'll put it this way. Kalen's going to treat this as a has-to-win game.
I think so.
I don't imagine if Kirby ever doesn't see any game as not a have-to-win, though. I don't know. What do you think about Duck about that? Do you think he's indifferent?
You'll know in the first 10 minutes. I don't know how that will be approached, but one team is probably in a mindset of, yeah, we'd like to win, and the other is, no, we have to win, or our season is over.
It would bug the hell out of Kirby to lose twice to Alabama.
Yeah.
It would have to. All right. So it feels like can you go in your time machine, just go 10 minutes into the game? Not the end of the game. Just tell me if Georgia's going to show up here. Let me put it this way then. All right. So Georgia now is checking its 2.5-point favorite per whatever bad lines ESPN is passing along. Don't know if that's good or bad. If I'm going to play the game of which unit breaks here, I've got two really good defenses here. I've got a really good offense here in Alabama, and I've got a pretty good but not great offense here in Georgia. I really hate to make one game a dispositive data point, but Jesus, guys, that horrible showing against a really bad Georgia Tech defense, confirmed bad Georgia Tech defense, is concerning. I don't even know if Georgia should be favored here. That's just my gut feel. Now, my models both have Alabama by 6. Robert has this even, with both teams going for a 2-point conversion at some point here. Kind of want to say Alabama. Don't know if Robert's model would have just cooperated, this would have been a dual model play. I still might just grab a little bit of Alabama here, maybe even money line. I just think Alabama's a better team. That's simple. Georgia's only lost one game. So go ahead, Robert.
I will say that earlier in the season, my model had Alabama outright over Georgia in that game. And now my model has this as a draw, basically a tie, 29-29. If this gets to a 3, I'm grabbing Alabama. 3.5, I'm grabbing Alabama. I will say that, again, in my model, huge difference between this game and the first game. Had Alabama outright, it's a tie now. Your model still has Alabama outright. My model is much more favoring to Georgia. I think thinking about it is, Georgia looked bad against Georgia Tech is the wrong way to think about it. I think the more important way to think about it is, hey, Alabama didn't look particularly good against Auburn. Didn't look particularly good against Oklahoma there. Didn't look amazing against LSU.
Yes, okay, yes, you're setting me up wonderfully here. Those are 3 elite defenses here.
That's true, and Georgia is
Georgia Tech is that's again, for over a month I've been saying Georgia Tech's a good over team, and it's not just because of their offense. Their defense is super obliging. And one game again is not it, but geez, just stumble into 20 points here, guys.
Yeah.
That ain't good. Now, maybe Georgia had their eye on this one. I don't know. Since they had the conference lapped up. I don't know. So Robert's kind of saying, okay, move half more. Alabama here, just money line as it is. Duck, what about you?
Do you know the last time that Georgia beat Alabama?
Was it under
Kirby's done it once, hasn't he?
Yeah, it was the 2021 National Championship game.
Okay.
And
this Georgia team's as good as that one, isn't it? I'm joking.
Not defensively. Hard cap here, honestly, and I don't see a lot of value. So this is one of the games that I really don't have on my radar to really put any money on. But it will be hard for Alabama to run the ball. They don't have a real proficient and explosive rushing attack, which is surprising given the talent they have on the O-line. So the quarterback is going to be tasked with a lot here, Ty Simpson. And it was jerky in the first game when you look at his overall numbers and kind of what he was able to do. It was okay. But it's tough to want to bet against Georgia in this setting. They play in this dome a lot, and they don't lose a lot here in the Georgia Dome. And if they show up and they're ready to go, I don't know. I kind of like the way the offense. I didn't play well against Georgia Tech, but prior to that, the offense had started to come around this year. And
it had, yeah.
One game doesn't. Georgia Tech is so weird. That's what I had told you guys before, that if we saw 14 with Georgia Tech, I was absolutely going to be on them, and I was. And in rivalry games, there are some games where you can just throw the record books out, and it doesn't matter what team is on what team, because it's just going to be a close, competitive, hard-fought, weird game. And clean old-fashioned hate is one of those where that can happen. It was very similar to in nature to USC and UCLA, where it doesn't matter how bad or good those teams are. When they get together and it's that crosstown rivalry, those games are going to be close for a while. And we've seen that in rivalry week. So I'm willing to give the Dogs a free pass here on this one. I would lean Georgia, but I really don't want to bet against Alabama in a season of desperation. Like, your season's on the line here. There is no tomorrow. You win or you go home. And we've seen them show up in bowl games that they didn't want to play in and look terrible. If they don't win here, this is major trouble for the Tide. And so I would be led to believe that Kalen DeBoer can come up with a game plan and draw it up to at least have some moderate success passing the ball against Georgia. Georgia's defensive front is not the vaunted front seven that we've come to know and love out of the Bulldogs. They don't strike the fear of God into you like they used to. So I think they should be able to score a little bit here. Probably a field goal game either way.
I will say Georgia does strike the fear of God into law-abiding drivers, though. Okay.
Oh, yes.
Sorry. Let me just ask you this, though. I think you're probably going to land where I'm landing. I'm not saying you need to take an oath or just be squarely against my numbers here. But the three teams that we were talking about earlier in terms of LSU, Auburn, and Oklahoma, I think that Georgia's defense probably is in the same league only as Auburn's. And I think Auburn's defense might actually be a lot better than we think, but their offense is so freaking bad that it just puts too much pressure on them. Although, see above LSU and see above Oklahoma. But Auburn's offense is just really bad. I think that unless you've got one of that level of defenses here, DeBoer's way, he just said, yeah, we don't run great. I've got a really good passing game. Try to stop this. And you even said that you think, I guess, number one, just to establish, Duck, you think Georgia's defense is below LSU and Oklahoma's then, right?
Well, certainly below Oklahoma's, yes.
Okay. So, yeah, but their offense is so much better. Yeah. I don't know.
I mean, it's 24-21, 23-21,
Yeah.
21-17. Like, this is going to be a slobber knocker. This is going to be a good bout, a good indicator on who wins the 10-yard wars. It's not all just about the explosive pass plays and scoring touchdowns. How are you going to compete in the trenches here, and how are you going to move the ball? I think we'll see some of that. But this was an epic battle in the first meeting, 24-21. Alabama has played some up and down performances since then. Their offense has been pretty good, but not 11. They're not scoring 40 points a game. They're scoring 30 points a game because they scored 73 against Louisiana Monroe. Otherwise, you know what they'd be at? They'd be at 27. And it's just been middling. So it's just so hard for me to want to get involved here with actually betting this one. Fun watch. I think Alabama shows up in absolute desperation, so that's a side I'd like to lean to, but I also think Georgia is maybe just a hair better, so I don't know.
Oof. Yeah, well, I don't know why I'm saying oof about it. They're higher in the rankings. Okay. All right, second to last game. The Big Ten, the best conference, he said, without much confidence in his voice. I've got these two teams basically even. You look at these metrics here, the only thing difference is, hey, Indiana runs the ball. And Ohio State, not nearly as much. Look, I'm not gonna argue with the Ohio State defense, but guess what? Indiana is just about as good. You're talking about these kind of defensive apex pluses here. That's crazy. That's just elite level. These are both like better than Texas last year, which is really good. I've got Indiana, and take some crap for this, is the better offense here. Ohio State, the better defense. I've got basically, interesting, I got a 1-point game both ways. Athena, Ohio State by 1. Indiana by 1 for BuckMetrics. Robert has Ohio State by 4. I'm almost at the point of thinking there's some value in Indiana. I think they're just as good as Ohio State, and I don't know if 5.5 is enough. I don't think this. No, let me just check my phone here, and before I say something really stupid and make myself look. So it's going down to 4.5. Okay. Which makes sense. Can't say this is a stink line because Ohio State's 1 or 2, depending on where you shop. But I think Indiana's definitely within a field goal of Ohio State, if not just even. It's a little less appealing at 4.5, but I don't know. Who cares from 5.5 to 4.5? I'll probably, maybe the play here is I'm going to talk myself into it, which is why I love this podcast. I can go through my thought process here. Robert, is the money line play here on the Hoosiers the way to go?
So, I think my model has it. I think characterizing it as 4 is maybe a little unfair. I think I have a 3.5, so just slightly over that. I agree. I think this game is pretty even. I actually do. I've placed something on Indiana already. I can't remember if I have Indiana conference future or not, but I definitely grabbed some Indiana. I got 5.5. I think it's down to 4.5 in some books now. So I grabbed some 5.5 and some money line. My thing about Ohio State is just simply this. I am a little worried that Ohio State just won their Super Bowl. Because basically since they lost the game to Michigan last year, they have won every single game. They crushed Tennessee. They crushed Oregon. They beat out Texas by 2 scores, and then they beat Notre Dame by 2 scores in the national championship game. And then basically, with the exception of Texas again in the first week, which again that was first start for Julian Sand, they've gotten better, and they've just been crushing everyone, including Michigan last week, and that was it. But it feels like they were just trying to get back to Michigan and crush Michigan, and that was it, and they did that. The thing my worry about Ohio State, and you even see this against Michigan, like they only ran for 4 yards of play against Michigan. They threw for a lot more. They threw for 9, but this is the thing: their rushing attack, and you even see it there. Their GGAP plus is only 117. Their rushing attack is not that great. Indiana is going to be able to shut them down, and then Ohio State's going to have to pass, and look at what they're going to be passing into: a defensive apex of 16. And this thing now, Ohio State's defense also very good, but if Indiana can figure it out, and again, Michigan early was starting to do some things. That was the most offensive sparks we've seen against Ohio State all year long. I think Indiana might be able to do this. I worry that Ohio State just won they wanted to beat Michigan. That's all they wanted to do, and they finally got the chance. They did it. They're happy now. I worry that maybe they celebrated a little too much. Again, does Ohio State really care about this game that much? They really need the 1 seed. They're going to the playoffs. They know they are. They know they're going to be a top 4 seed. They're probably going to get a bye no matter what the outcome of this game. So I worry that then Indiana might be able to catch Ohio State sleeping a little bit here.
Yeah, let me ask you. I'll make a statement, Duck, and you can tell me how far off I am. I don't think Ohio State's anything close to as good as Indiana this year. This is a well-balanced team in run and pass on offense and defense. Definitely the best coach that they've faced this year. I don't want to say it's a culture shock in terms of quality of opponent, but I don't know. Who's the best team that Ohio State's played to date? Michigan? Washington?
Not Texas.
Okay. I'm applying a Canadian dollars thing to Texas. I like about 76% as well as everybody else. That doesn't impress me. And look, Arch is better now, as we saw by the NFL caliber pass he made that we talked about in part 1. He doesn't scare me. There's nothing about Texas that is even close to this Indiana team, if that's the best team, or Washington or Michigan. So, I'll throw it to you on this. Is Hoosiers money line the play?
I don't think so. I think that Indiana is very good. I think they'll be very motivated to be there. I think it's going to be really a feather in the cap of Kurt Cignetti to win the Big Ten championship, and so I could certainly see that happening. The first time these two teams met, it was a lower scoring first half. It was 7-0 into the second quarter. Ohio State punched a couple in late in the first half. Different scenario, different teams. This year's Ohio State team has come out relatively conservatively in games. They try to establish the run. Their rushing attack isn't actually that bad. They're 12th in overall rushing success this year, and they're 32nd in explosive rushes. I think Indiana's defense is very stout, and they will shut that down. Ohio State beats you by wearing you down in the second half and then connecting on the explosive deep shots, and that could happen here. This could be a real old school early 2000s type of handicap, but this is a dead nut first half under in my opinion. 24.5, give me the first half under. I think we'll see a feeling out process by both of these teams. I think they'll both decide to go conservatively early on, get a feel for the situation. Would not surprise me at all if we see punt, field goal punt in the first quarter. Then they start to open it up a little bit in the second half, and then in the second quarter. Ohio State's got two receivers that are very talented, and it just could be a little bit difficult to contain them for 60 minutes. I think Indiana will have a really good game plan. I think they'll show up and play really spirited defensive football in the first half. I think Fernando Mendoza is a really solid quarterback, but I think you could put about 30 different quarterbacks in that system, and with the people around him, I think they would all perform about that. So, I don't know. I like the first half under. I think it's a close game. I would give both teams a spirited chance to win. Robert, I think your concerns are very real. They just won their Super Bowl. They just beat Michigan for the first time in 5 years, and it was a huge monkey off their back. So are they fully focused here? Maybe not. But Whatever happens, I think it's a lower scoring first half.
I can see that. I'm just going to defend Robert's honor a little bit because he's too kind to do so. I cannot overlook Indiana. I believe they won by 10 at Autzen.
Yes.
And it would have been 17 were it not for a very unfortunate pick six. Oregon's offense did not score in the second half. I think Oregon's offense is as good as it gets. Thank you, Kentucky, for getting Will Stein out of my conference. Thank you, Big Blue Nation. I think there's I'm not going to crap on Ohio State. I just think there's a proof of value here in Indiana that I just haven't seen at Ohio State in terms of who have you beat where. Ohio State is nothing that's even close to winning at Autzen by 2 scores. Man, if I can get what kind of money line is it at minus as like a 4.5?
I think it's like
getting 4.5.
Probably plus 168.
Yeah, well, okay.
165. That's a 4.5. It was at plus 5.5. I think it was like 185. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll probably grab some of that as soon as we're done here. This is, I don't know, I kind of want to say this is the most interesting game, although if Ohio State just shows up on it, I'll put it this way. If they're not showing their A game, then maybe it's not watchable for your fan, although another reason to take the money line, because nothing better than money line game when you're just comfortably ahead. I can watch all that if they're up ahead by 30 points. Sincerely, a guy who loves to bet unders. Okay. Last one, the big one for Duck. It's Duke versus the Duck. Virginia given 2.5 here. Boy, Virginia to a degree has gotten away with it. I think they had one stretch where they had 4 games by a total of 7 points or something silly like that.
One of those was North Carolina.
Yes. Look, Duke with 5 losses? Is that what they are? 7-5, have we said?
They did not get away with it.
Yes. Very well said. Although, like I said, at the end of part 1, Duke did score 49 against a very good Wake Forest defense. Clearly, I think Duck with his sizable payoff ticket here on Virginia, there's no need for him to play. Robert, we are on different sides here. I've got the very rare same score for Athena and BuckMetrics of Virginia 29-25. You've got Duke by 5 here.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Virginia's defense has come on. I guess this maybe just comes down to who do you believe in more? The Dario Mensa offense or I forget the name of the defensive coordinator of Virginia. He's definitely had some moments here. He moved them up quite a bit when I think it's in their second year. I'm not going to try to figure this one out. I guess if you ask me what would I play, if somebody just gave me $10, I think I'd take Duke money line here. Sorry, Duck. It's just, boy, but can I trust that Duke defense? That's the thing. And like we said at the top of the games here, look at that Duke's defensive rating -1.7, just in line with that -2 we were talking about earlier of North Texas. So congratulations, Duke. You're a little bit better than the Mean Green on defense. If it comes to coaching, maybe I take this angle here too. Manny Diaz over Tony Elliott, he said with a question mark. Maybe I'll throw that to you, Robert. Is that maybe the angle to take here? You've got the better quarterback and the more established coach?
Yeah, Manny Diaz is not bad. Yeah, Duke has some losses, 100%. But, those were to relatively good teams. That's Illinois, a Big Ten team. I think they lost to Tulane. That's another team in the actual playoff, theoretically in the playoffs. They're in a conference championship game as well. I think they have a couple other losses to some ACC teams. But, their offense has been good. Virginia has struggled in a lot of these games. There was the game against Cal that they struggled to cover against Cal. They barely beat North Carolina. I think they lost to Georgia. They lost to NC State. And then who they lose to? Georgia Tech? No.
Wake Forest.
Wake Forest. They lost to Wake Forest. Duke just crushed Wake Forest. Do I believe 100% in Duke? No, but do we really trust? I don't trust this Virginia team. I think they're okay, but I just don't trust them. If I'm I don't trust this Duke team, but this Duke team has been doing stuff recently. Virginia, outside of, they beat up a Virginia Tech team that doesn't have a head coach. They do have a head coach, but they're currently head coachless with a quarterback that's on the bum list. And they beat up on them, and we're okay, all your other problems are fixed now. Problem solved. We're good. I don't buy that. So, yeah, I'm on Duke here. I got Duke 3.5. I got Duke 3.5, and I think a bit of a money line there. I'm taking that. I don't know. Could we be wrong? Yes. Could the ACC try everything in their power to get Virginia in 100%? But that being said, it's a 3.5. You can get a little bit. You get a hook there on a field goal. So I'll take that.
Duck, let me throw it to you on something different. Explain your process for not hedging on this one. I'm fascinated by that.
I could hedge, and would be. Depends on what you think about the game and what you think about the opponent. If they were playing Miami, that's a different story. If they were playing SMU, even, that's a different story. Duke could have 7 losses. They have been so flippant with the ball. Their defense can't stop anybody. And we saw the situation play out when Virginia played Duke. Virginia's bad loss was Wake Forest. They played that game without a quarterback. Their quarterback went out with injury early in the game, and the offense couldn't do much. They had a guy who hadn't taken a snap all season. And that situation has now corrected itself, but I don't know. I look at Virginia really buttoned up on defense. Really very well coached. Rudzinski, I think, is the guy's name who came over from Air Force.
Rudzinski, that's it.
And
yeah, the Air Force guy. Yep, thank you.
Virginia went on the road, and I think it was 34-3 at one point. Outgained them by 300 yards. Just completely shut down everything Duke wanted to do. Duke offensively has not changed. And unfortunately for Duke defensively has not changed. But we have seen this Virginia team just grit their way to wins time and it's written. It has been written. Virginia is winning the ACC. I'm very confident about that. I just don't see a reason to hedge. If they go down 14-0 and I have to hedge out at a worse number and I want to look at something like that, yeah, maybe. But you know what? This is a ticket I'm really glad I have. And not the best team in the ACC. They don't deserve to be in this. ACC has really screwed themselves by becoming too big and having goofy tiebreakers instead of having a sort of system where everybody plays each other, or you have divisions or something else to really find a way to get your 2 best teams in it. But Virginia's taken care of business, and the offense the last couple of weeks has looked really good against Duke and Virginia Tech, but the defense has been lights out really all season. And this is I like the quarterback play, I like the coaching, I like the run game, but defensively at all 3 levels, Virginia is very buttoned up, and I want a team that runs the ball. I want a team that plays good defense. Special teams, huge advantage for Virginia. This is the team I want to be on here.
Very fair. I wish you luck on that. That would be just incredible. And good job by you. It's very, how do I say this? I don't know if you had the specific foresight to say, like Robert and I were very bearish on Clemson before the season. Florida State, who knew what they were going to be, and Miami always has the Mario issue. If you start with that, if you've got that much what you think is dead money in the pool, there's going to be nuggets that you can pan for, right?
Yeah, and in a conference where you don't play everybody and the tiebreakers are wonky and you have a team that benefits from a schedule that's a little bit more favorable, that's how you come up with 22-1 for North Texas. That's how you come up with a 200-1 for Virginia. That's how you get other teams that are in these super conferences. That's how you get Indiana in there. What was Indiana to win the Big Ten? 40-1? It was Penn State, Ohio State, Oregon. That's what it was. That's how you get that sort of scenario to play out when you can identify teams that are on the rise, that have a favorable draw. The scheduling draw comes down to it being so critical here. Look at the SEC, where it ended up being Alabama, Georgia, but it could have very easily been Texas A&M and Ole Miss.
Yeah.
And those were 2 teams that people weren't necessarily pegging preseason to win the SEC.
Yeah.
And so, going forward, for anyone listening in, if you dive into the schedule and you can find a team that's under the radar and has a good staff with some good defensive pieces, and you look at the schedule and you miss teams 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6, and you're only playing the 5th-rated team, like that's a team that can really make a jump.
And an upgraded quarterback.
Yeah.
Significantly upgraded.
And how about this? I was just looking this up. How about you get to play your first conference road game without it counting? That helps a lot, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. We'll just take a do-over on that. Yeah. All right. Congratulations. I'll be pulling for you, even if I'm on Duke, which I don't think I will be. All right. Revisiting preseason predictions. Robert, congratulations on Middle Tennessee over hapless New Mexico State. I was looking okay for about a half there with A&M over Texas. Duck, Central Michigan over Toledo. I still like that play. I still like that. You just the fact that Central Michigan was so much better, you nailed that, and alive for a spot in the conference title game as well. Good job by you. And we talked about this one was not to be. Congratulations, Robert. You can rub that in Isaiah's face that Washington did not beat Oregon. I'm counting myself as a winner to the degree there is one. I had 3 straight up winners, and all of us had 2 that covered that did not win as well. And then the preseason conference title game predictions. I had 7 of 18. Robert, you had all of 3. The guest did 3 of 14. Robert and actually the guest, Graham and I, were the only one that had both ends of any of these with both Georgia and Bama. And as you pointed out, Duck, that could have easily been 2 totally different teams as well. One of which Robert had in A&M as well. So, gentlemen.
Widely variant.
Yes, just over 2 hours. Thank you so much. This is our last in this format. Like I said, we will be doing a preview next time you talk to us in some format of the playoff preview. What we're going to try to do, and I think we've got most people set up, is just revisiting with the people that guested with us on the conference previews to go over those conferences teams that made the playoff. And we'll try to figure out how we sew that all together or do them separately or what, but that's what we're looking at here. In the meantime, happy holidays, or as AI says, happy holidays with 2 S's here. Good job, AI. But gentlemen, thank you both. Robert, didn't have to break out the foghorn to keep you awake. Duck, best of luck on Saturday on the nightcap.
Thank you.
See you, everybody.